Nope.
Her name was Katy Lee. She was definitely one of the smartest little girls I have ever had the privilege to teach, but to be honest, I hardly paid attention to her until 5 days ago. Though she excelled in every test I gave the class, Katy was excellent at making herself invisible. Before I continue, let me give you some background. I am currently living in Daejeon, South Korea, where I work as an English teacher. I love it. It's a lot better than barely scraping by in Nashville, Tennessee, working as a salesman in a dying retail store. For the past 3 years, I've taught English to elementary school students. Just like every other school, there are good kids, there are bad kids, there are weird kids that eat flowers dipped in glue, and there are students like Katy Lee. She's the type of student that comes to school to learn, to better themselves, and to escape the demons that haunt every inch of her house. Like I said, I never really took the time to learn much about her. The only time I really talked to her was on the first day of class. During attendance, I called her by her first name, but she held up her hand and asked me to call her Katy. I didn't ask why. A lot of Korean kids like making up English names for themselves. After that, she sat at the back of the class and never said a word. I know I should have made some sort of effort to speak to her, but honestly, at that time, there wasn't really a need. That quickly changed when she started staying after class for the past 5 days. It was the last class of the day, so I had to stay with her until she decided to leave. During the time she was alone with me in the classroom, she sat at her desk and drew on a sheet of paper. Every day the drawings were different, but they all revolved around one theme: people dying. Before she left, she would hand me the drawing and tell me what the general theme was. I thought it would be easiest to read about the drawings if I wrote it out day by day. Day 1. It was a crudely drawn helicopter. On first glance, it looks like 2 guys are hanging onto the ropes tied to the bottom of part of the helicopter. Looking a bit closer, I noticed that the ropes were around their heads. She put little X's where the eyes were supposed to be on the people. I asked her what it was. She gave me a half smile and said, "Helicopter," before rushing out of the door. Day 2. It was a blue elephant. There was a person riding on top of it, but underneath each of the elephant's feet, it looked like red puddles. A bunch of stick-figure people surrounded the elephant. Some of the people lying on the ground with red dots surrounding their bodies. Before I can even ask her, she pointed at the drawing and said, "Elephant," before rushing out of the door again. Day 3. I talked to the principal about the drawings in the morning. She laughed and said that kids were getting more and more violent. I asked her if we should call the parents, but she just put up her hand and said, "It's okay, as long as she's getting good grades, she's fine." That day, she drew a person climbing up a ladder. He was around halfway up, but on the bottom of the ladder was another person beginning to climb up. That person had a knife in its hand. Before she can rush out again, I got up from my chair and stood between her and the door. I asked her what it was. Without even looking surprised, she mumbled, "Ladder." I asked her why she drew a knife in the other person's hand. After a couple of seconds, Katy hung her head down and began to cry. I knelt down beside her and asked if she was okay. She just whispered, "Ladder," again, before pushing me down and running out of the door. Day 4. I talked to the principal again. I told her about Katy pushing me down. She told me she would call the parents for me. Feeling slightly relieved, I proceeded with the day. Katy left with the class today, but before she left a folded up piece of paper on my desk. It took me a while to convince myself to look at it. It was a dog with fluffy hair in certain parts. The mouth of the dog was red, and there was a stick figure person lying beside it. There was a small pool of blood around the person. On the bottom of the drawing was a single word: Poodle. Day 5. This morning, I thought about calling off of work, but decided against it last minute. Once I walked into the building, the principal ran up to me and asked me to follow her. She led me into her office, where I saw a police officer with a grim look on his face. Before I can even greet him, in the best English he can muster up, he asked, "Give me the drawings, please. You tell her she gave you drawing. Give me those." I told him they were in my classroom. He followed closely behind me to the class and waited beside me while I took the drawings out from under my desk. He took a couple of seconds to look over each of the drawings, and without another word, he left. I tried asking the other teachers what happened to Katy, but nobody knew. At the end of the day, I found the principal and tried asking her, but she just shook her head and walked past me. I got home around 4 in the afternoon, ate dinner at 7, and at 9, the principal called to tell me what happened. Apparently, Katy's neighbor called the police after they heard shouting coming from Katy's apartment. When the police arrived, they saw that the door of the apartment was halfway open. Immediately, they saw Katy's corpse sitting on the lap of her beheaded father. His severed head was on Katy's lap. They tried to find a cause of death for Katy, but she didn't have a single cut or bruise on her. On the floor next to their bodies was a single piece of paper. After a couple of seconds, the principal let out a sigh and said she'll send me a picture of the drawing that the officers found. About 10 minutes after she hung up the phone, I received a picture from her. It was a drawing of what seemed to be Katy's family. Katy and her father were standing outside of their building with a smile on their face. Her mother, who passed away 2 years ago, had a frantic look while she pointed at one of the windows in the apartment. In that window stood a girl who looked exactly like the Katy that stood beside the father. Her hands were on the window, and in the right hand was a knife. On the bottom of the drawings were 3 words: "Nobody helped me." At around 10 p.m., I was sitting on my bed, and I began to hear Katy's voice coming from somewhere in my apartment. It kept chanting the same thing over and over again. It took me a couple of minutes to understand what it was saying. "You didn't help me. Now you belong to me." Every time it said it, the voice would slowly change. It started as Katy's voice, and slowly would become closer to mine. It's almost 11 now. The voice is gone, but I can see a pair of eyes staring at me. They look like my eyes, but they're unnaturally bright. I swear, every couple of seconds, I can see a little more of my face appear around the eyes. I tried to get out of my bed and run out of my apartment, but I can't. I managed to grab my phone. I decided to write this out to distract myself from my current situation and also to send out a warning. If any children display any sort of weird behavior, don't listen to your superiors. Act on it. Alert the police. Ask them if there's anything you can do for them. Make them trust you. You might be the only one who can actually help. It's midnight now. Wherever it is, it has completely mocked my appearance. I thought it would kill me, but it just walked up to me and said, "Hello, teacher. You didn't help. 5 days left. Find the person that killed me. Kill them." It walked away, and I finally managed to get out of my bed. Looks like I'm screwed. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, be sure to destroy that like button down below. If you really enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe for future videos if you haven't done so already. If you want to learn more about the author of this awesome story, be sure to check the description below to find links to their profiles. Until next time, everybody, stay safe out there. I'll be seeing you in the next video.